Here we are with Crowbar, or is it Devon Storm as I first saw you back in the day, or is it Crowbar nowadays?
Crowbar, Devon Storm, Chris Ford, whatever you prefer.
I gotta tell you, I'm a
Whatever
little
they want to
upset
put on the poster.
when I got that email back. I'm like, Chris Ford, who's Chris Ford? And I had to like, oh, I thought his name. I thought legit your name was Devon Storm. I always thought
A
anybody
lot,
with the last name
a lot of
Storm was
people
like
do. Yeah. Yep.
from the infamous Storm family.
Yeah. There's
Before
many
we
of us.
Yeah, a big lineage apparently. But before we get into the whole wrestling talk, I always like to kind of have a little bit of an icebreaker. What's something about you that people would be surprised to know that you're a fan of? Are you like a big Swiftie? Are you a big Backstreet Boys fan? Is your Saved by the Bell on your playlist right now on your binge watching right
Uh,
now? Or
I don't think it would be that big of a surprise because it's pretty well documented. But I would say I am probably the world's biggest Star Wars fan.
okay. So
Yeah,
what would you rank some of these newer ones? Because I always get a lot of like, obviously we're not going to talk about the first three because everybody, those are classics. But
of course.
I'm a big Revenge of the Sith fan. I think
Me too.
I
I
think
like
the
Revenge of
ending
the
is
Sith.
fantastic. But what do you think of like the latest three? Not like the Rogue One and all those. I'm talking like the episode 7, 8, and 9.
Uh, I'll just touch on it real quick. I liked Rogue One. I liked Mando. Uh, I like Book of
Solo was
Boba
great.
Fett. Yeah, I love Solo too. The sequel trilogy, not so much. And I'll tell you why. Uh, when I first got signed with WCW and started going on the road, I discovered this thing called the expanded universe of Star Wars books and fantastic stories, fantastic storytelling, new characters, and I was really spoiled by a lot of those stories. So I was expecting something like that, and unfortunately, the sequel trilogy just didn't deliver anything there. It from what I know of it, they made one movie at a time. There were different directors. The storylines get changed. When you think of Disney procuring uh, the Star Wars universe, and you're going to come out with three new movies, I would think you would have the entire one big story written before you go about it, and not just do it show to show to show. That's all. Very big disappointment. I thought The Force Awakens laid some good groundwork, which could have been a good story, and then uh, The Last Jedi ruined it.
Mhm.
Although I will say, through all three movies, there are some scenes, individual scenes that are visually super impressive.
Do you have a lot of collectibles or memorabilia when it comes to Star
Yes, I
Wars?
do. If if I had gotten out if I have gotten out of work a little sooner this evening and I was at home, I usually do my podcast in my basement. I have a life-size Han Solo and Carbonite, life-size Stormtrooper,
Wow.
life-size Darth Vader, all kinds of statues and busts and lots of Star Wars memorabilia as well as action figures and play sets and you name it, I probably got it.
Wow, that's pretty cool. We might have to show off and maybe if there's a part two down the road. But
Yes.
let's talk about wrestling. Growing up as a wrestling fan, first off, what gave you the bug in pro wrestling, and how did you go from wanting to be a pro wrestler to just flat out becoming a pro wrestler? Like, what was that final thing where it's like, you know what, this is the journey that I want to take?
Well, my first memory ever of it was I have a brother that's 10 years older, a sister that's 11 years older, and I was not playing probably, but I remember my father watching wrestling with my brother, and we lived in a little Cape Cod house. And if you're familiar with how Cape Cod's laid out, you got the two bedrooms, the living room, the kitchen on the bottom floor, and my bedroom was diagonal from the living room. WWF was on late at night, probably 11 or 12 at night on Channel 9. My dad would watch it with my brother. I wanted to watch it. I was not allowed to, but I would feign going to sleep. I would open up my door just a crack, and where my bedroom was, I had a good angle to watch wrestling from the crack in my bedroom door. And since that time, just the characters, the storytelling, the athleticism, the pageantry, these larger than life crazy characters sucked me in. I was a huge fan of it then. I'm still a huge fan of it now. I'm not embarrassing. I'm probably the world's biggest wrestling fan as well. I still enjoy watching old wrestling. I enjoy following new wrestling, seeing how things have changed. And from that moment, as a child, when I was probably, I want to say maybe 4 or 5, 6, maybe the most. As I got older and I watched more and more wrestling as a fan, I became a bigger and bigger fan to where when I got to about age 12 or 13, I wasn't quite sure how I would go about doing it, but I knew that being a fan wasn't going to be enough and that I had to find a way to do it. So it was about the time when I realized that I was going to pursue it, and then I just had to find out how I was going to pursue it.
I hate to age anybody, but is this like a yellow pages kind of thing, or because internet's kind of still relatively new in the last 25 years?
Yeah.
And I know that
So
you started wrestling before 98, 99. So like, how did you kind of look for the right school to join?
so we had there was a plethora. That will be the word of it. We had a plethora of wrestling magazines at all
Mm.
the they weren't comic book shops. They were like candy stores that sold like candy and cigarettes and like uh, newspapers and stuff like that. There were many magazines, and once in a while you would see wrestling schools highlighted that were in Canada. The closest one to me was Larry Sharp's Monster Factory
Mm.
in Paulsboro, New Jersey, which at that time that was the closest one. Probably about a 2 hour drive from me, so that's kind of tough. But for a while, that was my plan because that was the only one that I knew of that was close to me and the closest one. Then it's really fate. It's pro wrestling found me more than I found it.
Mm.
Long story short, I'll give you the cliff notes. My sister's ex-husband's brother, so my former brother-in-law by marriage,
Mhm.
whatever you want to call it, knew a guy, Tom Rumsby, who worked locally at in this big factory building, and within that building was a company called General Bicycle. They did bicycle repairs. They sold bicycles and stuff like that. And this guy Tom Rumsby he was either the owner or the supervisor or he worked there. Somehow, my sister's husband's brother met this guy, and they got to talking. And it turns out that Tom Rumsby was a former pro wrestler, and somehow within the next from that point on in the next year or so, a year and a half, he was planning on opening up pro wrestling school with Iron Mike Sharp from
Ooh.
WWE Saturday morning TV. So I went down. I met Tom Rumsby. He told me he was going to be opening up a wrestling school. I immediately started looking for jobs. I started working at a local catering hall as a busboy. Friday night, Saturday, double shifts, Sunday double shifts, and I saved my money up. And finally, my junior year of high school, I went down to Iron Mike Sharp School, which was in Bricktown, New Jersey, which was about an hour and 10, hour 15 minutes, so closer than 2 hours. Big difference, and the rest is history. So it kind of found me
Mm.
very oddly.
And it looks like it turned out pretty well. I do want to ask. You said New Jersey. I'm from Los Angeles. I've born and
You're
raised
breaking
here
up. I
all my
can't hear
life.
you well.
I want to say I'm
Okay,
from Los Angeles, born and raised Los Angeles.
better.
I know the indie scene out here. I know what it takes. I know what it's like. So, what was it like in the independent scene back in New Jersey when you were first breaking into pro wrestling?
There were a lot of shows, and it was a different time than now. There was always somebody off TV doing the independent shows, like Mike Sharp. He was a Saturday morning enhancement guy, but he was very well known. He was a larger than life character. Everybody knew who Iron Mike Sharp was. So you would see guys like him a lot. Uh, when they stopped being full time with WWE, you would see the Wild Samoans, who most people at that time would be familiar with from uh, TV. anybody that left WWE or WCW went out on the indies, and it was a big deal. The biggest, there were a lot of shows. They drew well. I was by far one of the smallest guys on all those shows. I broke in literally when it was the land of giants, really big guys, really jacked up guys, which is what encouraged me to pursue the more aerial and acrobatic style because I never was a larger than life big guy. Was never a larger than life muscle guy, so I knew I had to be. I had to be something different at that time. And at that time, the Japanese and lucha style wasn't as prevalent, nowhere near as prevalent as it is now. So if you could learn to do some of those moves, you would really stand out. So that was one of the really big differences.
Uh,
And
w- w-
I go to an independent show now, and it's a total. I don't want to curse, like a total head f, because I'm one of the bigger guys now. So I still enjoy working with a lot of the cruiserweight guys, but I'm usually the base now, and I still do some stuff, of course. But when I broke in, me and guys like Ace Darling, who was my tag partner for years and years and years, we were the opening match guys on the card. We were 6 foot, and we were by far the smallest guys out there. And now I'm one of the bigger guys on these cards. So there's
yeah.
a lot of little differences, and also the style. You would have the former WWF, WCW guys on top of those independent shows, but the undercard, you would see guys like Jerry Lynn. You would see guys like Chris Candido. You would see Sabu. You would see guys like that. When you watched regular mainstream TV wrestling, you weren't seeing those kind of moves, those kind of matches. So when you would go to an independent show, the fans, the underground, the hardcore fans, whatever you want to call them, they would pursue these shows because they would see a different kind of work rate than they would be accustomed to seeing on TV wrestling. Now, I believe it's a little harder on the indies because as great as all the matches are on independent shows, you're seeing that same kind of great action on TV now at the same time. So it's kind of hard to separate yourself or be special from the TV product, in my opinion.
Yeah. I know a lot of people say that they never stop learning in pro wrestling, but kind of going through the indie scene back in the late early to mid 90s, was there a match that you had with somebody where it really started to click on, just maybe, oh wow, like light bulb, like whether it's Shane Douglas or Tracy Smothers, like is there a match that you kind of look back and you're like, all right, this is where it kind of started to click for me?
Without question. I was lucky enough to be able to work for the NWA promoter, Dennis Carluzzo, at that time. He saw my stuff, took a liking to me, and because of that, I had the opportunity to work with guys like Chris Candido. He put me out there with Tracy Smothers, and then when he finally booked me against Sabu, uh, who at that time I was a young green kid that didn't know crap. He was on fire on the independent scene, well known, and he could have eat me up and not give me anything. He'd let me shine. He let me show what I could do, and that was really my breakout match. Had it not been for that match, had it not been for Sabu, there would probably never have been a Crowbar.
Was there someone that you worked with that maybe put in a good work? Because I know you started wrestling a lot for ECW. Was it like a Sabu or a Candido that put in a good name for you over there?
I I think the ECW situation occurred. I was still full time in college and physical therapy school through all this. Once I graduated high school, I went to college and physical therapy school. Thank God I lived on the East Coast, so the East Coast, the weekends there was always shows running. I was lucky enough to go to WCW when Nitro was still an hour show, and
Mm.
Russell Conan. It was not a full time spot. It was a nightly spot because they knew I was full time in school, and I believe in hindsight I was brought into ECW to be a WCW guy to beat up on. I really don't think, and I don't think anybody put a word in. I think that's kind of how that situation came to pass.
Well, the first time that I ever saw you on TV, it was in July of '97. You had a match on Monday Night Raw, literally in the middle of the Monday Night Wars, in the middle of this Bret Hart against USA. So
Yeah.
those shows, in my opinion, '97, the summer of '97, is probably some of the best WWF TV that they ever produced. And you had a match with Ace Starling. What was that vibe like? Like, how did you get your big break with WWF and going on to being part of the light heavyweight tournament?
So the both of us we had been working with WCW. I was doing some singles cruiserweight type stuff. They would occasionally bring me and him in as a tag team, and we had both known Jim Cornette very very well
Mhm.
from the Independents. He was a friend of Dennis Carluzzo, the New Jersey promoter from the NWA that used us a lot, uh, and so both Ace and I were full time in school. Was actually in physical therapy school doing internships, so I'm going to the hospitals, and it's almost like a full time work schedule. And Jim Cornette calls us. He goes, WWF wants to try to do a light heavyweight type division like WCW does. All of the top shelf guys are down in WCW clearly, but you guys are still really, really good, and we like to bring you in. So he wanted to book us for that. I had to get clearance at my internship. I was nervous as hell that they weren't going to let us go, but they did. So Ace and I got up really early. We drove out to Pittsburgh. We got to the show. We were supposed to have an 8 to 10 minute match, but Bret Hart, uh, he cut the famous, what was it,
Oh, the
enema
enema,
promo.
yeah.
The enema promo. So we ended up having like a 20 minute, 20 second, not minute, 20 second match. Uh, but it was still really, really cool, really, really cool exposure. They brought us back the following week on Shotgun Saturday night. I think it was the following week, if not if not shortly thereafter. So we drove out. We got all ready for a 10 minute match or so. We ended up with a 20 second match or so. And then we drove back home that night, 8 hours or more, because he had to go to school and I had to go to work, internship. So it was a really hectic
Mhm.
one day from 24 hours, you know?
Yeah. What did they say that they were going to have more plans for you? I know they were building that light heavyweight tournament, the title, the championship tournament coming in like in December. Was there like talk of like maybe bringing you back and whatnot for maybe more of those light heavyweight matches?
Ace was not. I was S spec for the tournament, so I
Mhm.
had the opportunity to wrestle Taka Michinoku in the first round. And while I was brought out there, I also did a shotgun Saturday night against Brian Christopher.
Mhm.
They spoke of more dates, but they just never kind of came to pass. They kind of dropped the ball on the whole light heavyweight thing. There were brief discussions too of when I would graduate from school, they were interested in bringing me in to do light heavyweight work or
Mhm.
preliminary match work and also be the on the road physical therapist. At
Mhm.
that time, believe it or not, this is going way back. There were no trainers on the road for these guys, and I know that sounds crazy and sounds foreign. At that time, we went to the building, we got ready, we went out. There was no trainer, there was no ice, there was no taping up, there was no nothing. So it was actually discussed that I may have had a role like that, and again, it just never materialized.
I got one more question for that time because doing my research, I
Sure.
was looking back at some of your matches. Do you miss the blonde hair?
I do it. I've often toyed with the idea where I said, when I know it's going to be my very, very, very last match, maybe, just maybe, I'll don the neon green and black, and maybe I'll dye my hair that bleach white blonde one more time. But I'm not sold on it. But Uh, it was fun. It was cool, and it's something I might do if and when I know it's going to be my very last match. But I met my wife as Crowbar, and my hair was black. She likes black. My natural hair color is actually a dirty blonde, like a light
Mm.
dirty blonde. She met me with the black. She likes the black. So for right now, I keep the black hair. But at that time, so many people had blonde hair when I was there. There was Edge, Christian, Test. There were other guys with that white blonde hair. So that's actually what prompted me to change it to black, just to stand out from everyone else. Because that was a time, if you go back at that time in wrestling, WWF, WCW, a lot of guys with that look. So I decided to shit can it and get a new look.
Mhm. So before going to WCW, were you doing the physical therapy full time, or were you still working a
Yes.
lot of indie shows and whatnot?
So I had done nightly WCW all through school and physical therapy school. I graduated. I worked for about a year at a local hospital, and I also side hustled at a sports care place. And about a year later, I got the call with some help from Diamond Dallas Page
Mm.
that I would be signed to WCW. So I worked for about a year in 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 physical therapy, still doing wrestling almost every weekend. And about a year later, I got the call to go down.
So what was that experience like? Because I want to say when that the WCW came about, Vince Russo was in charge. I don't think it was Bischoff anymore. Or was there talks
No, it was
even
Phil
when Bischoff
Bischoff.
was here?
Uh, Vince Russo came in maybe, I want to say, don't quote me, like maybe 6 or 7 months after my signing, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
you
it was still Bischoff.
okay? So you were signed, but you were just kind of working matches before the Crowbar character came about.
So if you go back, it's actually kind of cool to find. I was signed. Page helped get me my contract, and I was very grateful. He said, "Hey, you look good. You've been doing this a while, but I really need you to be sharp. I'm sticking my neck out for you. Can you move down here and go to the power plant?" I said, "Done." I gave notice at work. I moved down there. I wrestled every single day at the power plant to get sharper. And prior to becoming Crowbar, I want to say 6 or 7, I think 7. I had 7 matches on WCW Saturday night as a dark hair, kind of gothy Devon Storm.
Hmm.
You
So
can
you
find them; they're all there.
yeah.
This match with Kidman, Vampiro, Mike Sanders, Jamie Noble, Chuck Palumbo,
Wow.
uh, and then we went to Vail, Colorado, and it was Chris Benoit, which uh, they were grooming me on Saturday night to be the next cruiserweight that would come up to the main roster, a more aggressive uh, type guy, gothy, mean slash evil. I often use the ring steps. I use chairs, a lot of outside wild ECW esque type moves. So I was actually being groomed to be brought up as a new cruiserweight eventually. Uh, they gave me a nice build on Saturday night. Commentary was always very, very great. And the match I had with Chris Benoit on Saturday night got the highest rating that the show I'd gotten in years.
That's great. And then what was it like when they gave you the name Crowbar? Because that's a
Okay,
name that you still even use to this day.
yes. So that trip, I had flown in to do the Saturday night, which would be the match that I wrestled Chris Benoit at. So I flew in. I arrived at the hotel after it was either Nitro or Thunder let out, whatever they taped that night. I think it was a Thunder. So I went in to the hotel, checked in, dropped myself off at my room, Was still a little cold for some reason. I kept my jacket on. I went down to the hotel bar slash restaurant, and I walked in, and so I have been told by many people high up in WCW, even to this day. I walked in, I had my hair down, and leather jacket on, and I guess Vince Russo liked the look. And at that time, David Flair was being highlighted on the show Nitro Thunder. He was going around backstage terrorizing women and other wrestlers, whacking people with a crowbar, and he's out there with Daffney, and and he was drawing a rating. They really wasn't sure why, but people were tuning in to watch David Flair and his crazy antics. The only problem with David is not a very strong in ring performer. So, as I've been told, as legend should have it, they decided to put David Flair in a tag team with a competent wrestler and enter competent wrestler, and the partner would do the majority of the in ring work. We would put David in the ring as much as we needed to, so that it would appear that he's a part of a team.
Mhm.
And Crowbar was born.
And you guys end up winning the WCW Tag Team Champions. I gotta say, not a lot of people out there can say they were a tag team champion with a Flair. Maybe
Yeah,
you, Roddy Piper, and Greg Valentine. I think that's it. So,
crazy. Yep.
little cool stat. I do want to talk a little bit about Daffney, because you were there when she first started in pro wrestling. So you probably were there when she first fell in love with pro wrestling. Was there a moment for her where everything just kind of like fell in love with her?
Uh, I was primarily on the Saturday night show.
Mm.
At the time, I had not been brought up to the main show, but I was seeing how the David Flair Daffney thing was playing out on the main show. I had no idea that I would one day be part of this.
Mhm.
So fly in with the TV, and I'll never forget the story. Mike Tenay and Scott Hudson were always great to me on WCW Saturday Night. Very great with the commentary. Got my stuff over. Really helped tell a story during my matches. And I walk in the building, and I'm not even sure if the brand exists anymore. I'm wearing a champion shirt. It was a brand like Nike, Adidas,
Mhm.
whatever. And Mike Tenay goes, "How'd you know?" And I'm like, "Well, what? How'd I know what?" He goes, "How'd you?" I go, he goes, "Dude, you're getting the tag straps tonight." I go, "Get the fuck out of here." And so that happened my very first night at TV. Then shortly thereafter, I uh, actually, let's go back 1 week. The week before, we shot a vignette with David and Daffney, where I meet up with them at a gas station, and we become this crazy, crazy crew. And when I met both of them, I really wasn't sure what to expect with David. With the son of questionably one of the greatest wrestlers to ever lace up their boots. Was he going to be full of himself? Was he going to be conceited? Whatever, this, that. And he was the sweetest guy in the world. Not conceited. So nice. Was just so happy to have a spot. He knew his limitations. He knew what my role was, and he was appreciative of that role. And we practiced some, and we made him better. He worked with me. We had a string of singles matches on house shows, and each one got better and better and better. And I actually had a lot of fun working with David when our crew broke up and we had to work each other. There's one or two from Thunder, and granted, it's not what you would call in this day and age a 5-star match by far. But for a David Flair match at that time, I thought it was pretty freaking solid. As far as Daphne goes, her entire career, even from day one, she was just she would light up a room. She was always smiling, never a bad word to say about anybody. Just super grateful, super uh, bubbly, super positive, just exuded goodness. Just such a good person, and all three of us, we hit it off immediately. A lot of people ask me about backstage politics at that time. What did I think about this? What did I think about that? And when I was there, I was always aware that your time in pro wrestling is finite. You could be there for a year, you could be there for 2 years. Some people are there for 15 years, but you don't know. So I knew I had the physical therapy degree to fall back on. And I had the mindset that I was just going to enjoy my time there for whatever it was. And Daffney and David seemed to have a very similar outlook. So we were three young kids just having a great time.
Yeah, and obviously unfortunate what happened to Daphne, but at least we can all remember just the positive influence that she had on so many people. Not a single person that
Absolutely.
I saw says anything bad about her.
You cannot find a person on the
Yeah,
planet to say a
yeah.
bad thing about Daphne. Nope.
So we'll transition a little bit to more WCW. Uh, I'm gonna sound like a little fanboy right now. One of the things that I always liked about
I'm
you
still a
is
fanboy, so it's cool.
one of the things that I liked about your character is like it was so unstable. But one of the moments of the many moments that always stood out to me is when they gave you when they gave you a chance to do commentary. Because it added this whole new element to your character where suddenly you became like a Gordon Soley of some point, even doing the kind of like that aspect of Soli's thing. So what was that like? Them giving you a chance to maybe expand your character a little bit, going from the mentally unstable to like now all of a sudden like wow, you sound so competent when you have a sitting on the commentary table.
I really had no idea what I was going to do. I saw when we got the sheet for the show, David, Daphne, a Crowbar, they commandeer the announce table. And I'm like, what am I going to do? One, I'm nervous as hell. It still rears his face here and there. I grew up a really weird kid. I was the oddball, and I had probably the worst speech impediment one could imagine. And when people heard that commentary, when they heard my live interview back and forth on stage with Terry Funk, when they see my black and white timeless promos that I do now, they can't imagine it. But I grew up with a very awful speech impediment, and it was beyond awful. So now I'm given a chance to do live commentary on TV. I have the speech thing under control for the most part, but now what if it rears its head during this commentary? So it was very, very nerve wracking. But I thought positive, and I knew I would crush it. I knew I would kill it, but I didn't know what I would do. So I've always been very close with Kevin Sullivan. He goes, you're out there, you're nuts, but you do all these wrestling moves. You're like Rain Man. He goes, somehow you're crazy, but you know how to wrestle. You know what you're holding. He goes, what if you fucking went out there and you just did Gordon? And that was it. That's as simple as it is. Kevin
Yeah.
Sullivan, tell me, go out there. He goes, go out there and do Gordon Soley. And that was it.
It's crazy
That's how
because
that happened. Yeah.
because Gordon Soley was a little bit before my generation. So the
Yeah.
first time I ever heard the word Sue play was from you. So I just want to throw it out
Yeah.
there. That
Oh my
Solely
God. That's not.
that Solely took it from you. So that's what I I gotta say
Yes.
about that.
As
Um,
far as you're concerned, he stole it from me.
yeah, 1000%. WCW 2000. People don't look back about it fondly. I mean, I loved it. I loved everything in regards to pro wrestling. But did you see a little bit of the writing on the wall when it comes to WCW in 2000? Did you kind of see maybe it wasn't as organized as once was, or was a lot of that just pure blown out of proportion?
It seemed very unorganized at times, but again, it's not a cop out at all.
Mhm.
Through my perspective, I always was a gigantic wrestling fan. To this day,
Mhm.
I believe I'm the world's biggest wrestling fan. I had I have to set the stage for with the explanation here.
Mhm.
I always wanted to be a pro wrestler as I got older, and I had the opportunity to get to a wrestling school, get in a wrestling ring, and I always said that I would have been happy just to do an independent show here or there, just just for fun. If I went to wrestling school, and that would have been a dream achieved, a dream come true. I'm in WCW. I've already have my college degree. I'm someplace that I, in my wildest dreams, would have been great to be there. But do you really believe you would actually make it there? Especially
Mm.
when I broke in at a time when everybody was huge and I was such a small guy compared to them. I was there. It was surreal. Throughout my time there, I was given the tag team championship, the cruiserweight championship with an asterisk, and the hardcore championship. So as unorganized as things were going around, as much as you heard other people bitch and moan and complain, I can honestly say without I just enjoyed every moment just being there. I knew that it was finite. I knew it could end at any minute. When it did end, I would go back to being a physical therapist. I just had with the outlook that yeah, it might be a little crazy around me, but I never got absorbed in it. I never paid much much attention at all. I just enjoyed myself, and it's not a cop out answer. It's the absolute truth. So
Mhm.
I get asked this question a lot about near the end. Was it chaotic? Was it this? Was that? I was aware that there was crazy stuff going on, but I didn't get too involved because where I was on the card and everything else, and who I was backstage, it wouldn't have affected any of it anyway. I just enjoyed the ride.
Not just hardcore champion, but you lost it to Terry Funk at a Starcade.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
my
Like
who is
seriously, like
yeah,
how many people can say that? Like, you know, teaming with a Flair,
yeah.
losing a championship to Terry Funk at a Starcade. Like, my
And
goodness
one of my
gracious.
one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Terry Funk. One of my favorite matches of all time, Clash of Champions, New York Knockout,
Hmm.
I Quit match, Terry Funk versus Ric Flair,
Mm.
and that match was hardcore before hardcore was even a label.
Yeah.
They did everything that was hardcore. The hardcore just wasn't a name yet. And then fast forwarding all those years, I'm on Starcade, which is for fans that don't know, that was WCW's version of WrestleMania, and I'm wrestling Terry Funk in a title match. Mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that people can only dream of nowadays.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Was there any talks with WWE after WCW closed down?
I had several dark matches. Got great reactions. I'm not one of these guys that's uh, delusional. If the crowd if they hated me, I would say so. But I got a great reaction on YouTube somewhere. I have a match against the prototypes. Somebody somewhere got a whole library of dark matches
Oh
from
yeah.
WWE, and my match with Cena is out there. So if you look for it, it's there.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, got a great reaction from the Philadelphia crowd. I wrestled Rick Fuller in Hartford, got a great reaction there, and for whatever reason, it just didn't come to pass. But you also got to look at what was going on at that time. WCW was gone, so
Mhm.
everybody from there, names way bigger than me, were all looking to go to WWE. ECW had closed down. All the big names there are trying to go to WWE. So uh, I think there's just too many people trying to
Mhm.
get into the same place, and it just wasn't that uh, in the cards. I like to think, and I don't want to get preachy at all, but I say right now that not going to WWE, not being signed, was the best thing to never happen
Mhm.
to me. I think God has a plan. I don't want to freak out the listeners. I'm into God. I'm into my religion.
Mhm.
Had I got signed to WWE, I never would have met my wife. I
Mhm.
probably would have never had my two kids. I probably would have never opened my practice that I have going on here now, my physical therapy practice. So, as much as at that time I would have loved to have been there, I was upset. I was very, very down about not being picked up. In hindsight, when you look back, it couldn't have been a more perfect plan.
And then you found yourself in TNA for a little bit. How did that come about?
I was working full time in physical therapy, uh, and TNA had started up. They were running, I believe, Wednesdays. I want to say, doing a pay per view. They initially brought me in for the first show. I was put with the new church, and at
Mm.
that time, that was James Mitchell, Wolfie D, who was, I believe, his name was Slash, and myself. I thought we had a really cool look. The music was cool, the vibe was cool, and uh, it came down to a phone call that I had gotten. They said, "We're really watching the budget. We need you if you want to be part of our show to move down here." Uh, and I know there were plenty of guys that they were still flying in that did not that were not asked to move. So that tells me, being an adult, being a businessman, that my role, my presence there is not a top priority as these other talents are.
Mhm.
I had just started a full time job. I had just bought a house. I had just got engaged. So that was really the first time I had to make a really adult wrestling decision and say, as much as I would like to be there, I love this group. This character is really neat. I would love to be part of this company and grow. I had to take care of my real life responsibilities, and at that time there was still a lot of independent wrestling going on too up my way. So there's still wrestling was
Yeah.
plentiful. So I had to make the very adult decision to say, nah, I can't do it. I can't move down there. I, I made an attempt to lower my price and fly out of a cheaper airport and this, that, the other thing. And it just never, that's where it ended.
Before we wrap up, I do want to talk a little bit about current wrestling. Just like you, I'm a big fan as well. We're both on the Twitter, the social media network,
Sure.
and I feel like we just can't help it, but we see a lot of the word of the past couple years is tribalism. But one of my favorite things about you is you tend to try to put things in perspective, right? You're not trying to look for the bad. You're trying to maybe sometimes explain certain things, or maybe why certain things may be beneficial, and there's still the negativity, but that's, you can't help it. You just gotta let them be them, right? So
Sure.
what is it about that where you just always find, just trying to find the positive of everything, where it's like, listen, like, you know I'm just here trying to explain in some ways, right? Like, I've always
Well,
admired that about your account as well, and just the way
thank
you
you.
are.
Yeah, some people don't get it. Like when I'm doing
Yeah.
the wine and the black and white stuff, I'm being a character and I'm purposely stirring up the tribalism, and it's fun. I'm
Yeah.
being a wrestling character, and a lot of people don't get that part. I've met wrestlers that shows as, oh wow, I thought you were a dick. No man, I'm doing a cool character. That's just fun.
Mhm.
Uh, when I watch wrestling as a fan for Chris Ford.
Mhm.
When I go home tonight, when I finish here and I go home and I do my cardio, I'm going to hop on the bicycle. Uh, if I want to watch something just to enjoy wrestling as a fan,
Mhm.
I'll probably watch something early to mid '90s WCW, WWE. I'll watch it as a fan. I'll look for stuff that might have been forgotten of in
Mhm.
the archives of pro wrestling, a move that I could bring back in
Mhm.
and make it more modern. The wrestling that I like to watch as a fan is very similar to the wrestling that's described by, you know, Jim Cornette. I
Mhm.
like old school wrestling. I do. That's, as a fan, that's what I grew up
Mhm.
on. I I don't know if it's the fact that it triggers a nostalgia or what. I'm being realistic, trying to psychoanalyze myself
Mhm.
here. But that being said, I still enjoy wrestling very, very much. I'm 50 years old. I'm proud that I go out there and I do cruiserweight type matches with guys in their 20s. I train so that I can do that. Uh, And there is a difference between the wrestling that I liked as a fan and the wrestling that's out there now. Uh, you have to evolve or go extinct as a
Mhm.
pro wrestler. So I want to be out there. I want to be having fun. And I know that's not a real good business thing to say. Life is good, thank God. I have my business, I have my family. I'm out there wrestling because I choose to, because I friggin' enjoy it.
Mhm.
Uh, and I want to do it, and I want to do it well, and do it at a fun, competitive level. I want to do matches that are what I call modernly acceptable. So you need to evolve with things. That being said, being young once and taking a lot of chances and stuff like that, I think there are ways that today's modern wrestlers could be a whole lot safer. It's no secret that the injuries going on now are way more than
Mhm.
years ago, and that has to do with the style. Uh, I'm not saying don't work hard. I work your ass off. Be passionate. Do things that look crazy. Do things that look athletic. Do things that look violent, but do it safely.
Mhm.
There's a difference. Without pulling back the curtain too much, I do stuff with chairs, with guardrails. I still jump off cages. I drop the leg from the top of the cage, but there's a certain way that I do it. I have to be in work Monday morning. I have to
Mhm.
support my family. I have to send my kids to school and this and that. If there's a lot of things, I have been called a hypocrite because of my highlight reels because the stuff looks crazy. And and these are by fans, and I take it as a compliment because that means that what I'm doing in those clips looks nuts. Uh, but the way I've changed my move set, I've chosen things. Again, I look athletic, look crazy, look violent, look cool, but be safe. And if you could check all those
Yeah.
boxes, again, it is pro wrestling. No matter how simple the move is, you could always get hurt. Guys have broken their ankles on a baseball slide. Injuries can always
Mhm.
happen. But with a lot of the stuff going on today, we can greatly decrease the risk of a lot of
Yeah.
these guys getting hurt. And I just think things aren't thought out well. Like I always go back to the Dante Martin thing with the
Mm.
what was it?
Yeah. Off the ladder to the
The
table.
destroyer. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
So
there.
wow. So
Mhm.
clearly, the intent was for him to do the Canadian destroyer and go through two tables. And it's not a knock on
Mhm.
anybody. I think a lot of the wrestlers today just lack like physics knowledge. With that momentum, that forward roll, you're gonna hit that top table. There's no way you're gonna break the second one, and it's gonna tip over.
Mhm.
Uh, you have to take into account momentum and angles, and it's not super difficult,
Yeah.
but there are so many unnecessary injuries. I show people my cage dive against Sabu off of the WWA pay-per-view. It's on YouTube. You can find it. I jumped off of the cage through Sabu on Sabu, who was stacked, who was on top of two tables stacked. Looks crazy. A lot of height. I will pull back the curtain here. But when you look at how the splash was done, I literally held onto the chain that suspended the cage, and I dropped straight. There was no outward momentum. There was no backward momentum. There was no way for the table to tip.
Mhm.
And that's what a lot of these guys miss. They don't account for momentum and carrying forward and stuff like that. That's all. It's just little stuff. And I'm not knocking it because I
Mhm.
was there. I get the enthusiasm. I get wanting to get over. I get wanting to be remembered. I get wanting to show the company that you're out there to do great things and be remembered. And the only reason why I talk the way I do now is because it's all these years later. This is a statement. I'm not smarter than you guys. I've just been around longer. That's it. And I look back and there were, I'd say 4 or 5 times without question that God or a guardian angel was a thing, I should have died. I should have legitimately died professional wrestling, doing dumb shit. And thank God I'm here. And when I go on about these moves and these bad decisions, it's just trying to help. I'm not knocking these guys. I say without question, today's professional wrestlers are next level athletes that are beyond anything that's ever come before them. If they could just gain that little bit of a sense of safety, they are going to have long, long, exciting careers.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
I think they're
Before,
awesome, incredible.
yeah,
Again, I repeating myself, incredible athleticism, knocks my socks off. But there's just a safer way to do it. I work with a lot of younger guys now. Guys on the East Coast know my thing too. I ask to work with the younger guys. I like to do longer matches. I like to work hard, uh, and I will do anything as long as it's safe. But there's this crowbar thing that a lot of the guys backstage know on the East Coast. If I'm working with somebody new, and I'm usually agreeable to everything, but if there's anything that is very iffy or kind of dangerous or kind of a lot dangerous, I have my I sound like a used car salesman. I go, we're not going to do that spot, but I'm happy to give you. I'll take instead of that one spot, I will instead take two or three
hmm,
other moves of equal or greater value
yeah,
that that
excellent.
will make you look great. I'll instead of that one, I will give you an extra two or three that is totally safe for me and you. I'm not being lazy.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to protect us.
yeah,
And every single time the match ends up great, and every single one of the times is let the guy come back say, I really learned a lot, and I never would have thought to do X, Y, or Z. And one of the biggest things when they come back from a crowbar match now, I I ask, so how do you feel? You hurt? Shit, no.
yeah,
We tore it up, and nobody's hurt. That's the biggest win.
yeah. Yeah, before we wrap up, because it sounds like you're still making the towns.
Yeah,
What's coming up these days for you, and where can people reach out to you?
I have my first match back. I had a little. I took time off for the summer to be with the family, and I had a little surgery in August, which I actually decided at the 11th hour this past Sunday to show up at a fair show, and I had a good little cruiserweight match with El Magnifico, one of the Wrestle Pro students. Great guy. But the next show that I have on the books is uh, October the 28th in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey for Pro Wrestling Magic. I believe it's on IWTV. I will be wrestling for the first time a guy that I love, great guy. It's our first time working, Vinny Pacifico.
Okay.
Uh, Great dude, great wrestler. I'm looking so forward to it. And then November 1st in my hometown, IS, ISPW will be running at the historic Williams Center. And I will be, this will be our third match. I will be wrestling against Marcus Mathers, who I have
Mm.
really great chemistry with. And I'm really looking forward to that one.
Should be fun. Hopefully, everybody can check it out. But before we wrap up, I do want to show you one thing because
Sure.
you say you're a super fan. Do you got one of these bad boys? The original VHS of Pile Driver, the music video.
Of course I do.
Oh man, I thought I was gonna I got something that no one else has, but apparently, yeah.
Sometimes
Oh
love.
my god, that's a
Danny
whole other.
Doring. I'm really good friends with Danny Doring and Roadkill. And if we're hanging out in the yard during the summer, we have a couple beers. We will go on YouTube and we will find the wrestling and we'll just laugh our asses off and sing along.
If you only
I,
knew what I'm gonna do to
I
you.
you'd be running out of here fast as 2 feet could carry you. I'm also a big fan of the Captain Lou Albano song from the first album. From the
Yeah,
first
yeah, yeah.
album.
Yeah, the first one, it was a classic, but yeah, I think there's no better way to wrap it up. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for talking to me. Maybe we'll do a part two. We'll just talk about the Power Driver album for one of these days.
I think that would be fantastic.
Alrighty.
I miss the music Slammy Awards. I thought when they were doing songs and videos, as campy as it was so entertaining.
Hmm. Bring it back.
Jive Soul Bro was on there too. I love Jive Soul Bro.
There's something about God,
You
I
know,
could just go on and on because I don't want to go because I do have to be somewhere right now.
and
On
when
the
it,
Pile Driver album, there's like a or the video. There's like a slick promo, I guess you can say, that you won't find on YouTube anywhere before the Jive Soul Bro. That's like really only on the actual VHS. I think it's interesting.
I'll sh- I'll sh- I'll share this one last one for you. ISPW brought Slick in maybe about a year and a half ago to 2 years. I love Slick. Great.
Mhm.
It was one of my favorites. Big dude, super, super tall. Uh, but all of the guys in the locker room, and it wasn't just young guys, it was young guys. There were veterans like me, and Slick was there. And on the phone, somebody on their phone went to YouTube. They put on Jive Soul Bro. And there's something about it if you're alone or if you're with 20 grown men wrestlers in a locker room, you can't help but
The Akeem.
you can't help it. Your body cannot
Yeah.
resist.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about it one of these days. But thank you so much, Chris. Thank you much, Crowbar, Devin Storm, all the above. But
A lot
yeah,
of fun, man.
we'll see you next time.
Thank you.